Hey there, everybody. Robert Taylor with Wonderscape Creations. Gonna go ahead and get started on this magical spell series, starting off with a banger, if I do say so. So, the announcement video I showed off the coolness, the epicness of the spell, and then I woke up with a couple of ideas and um, made some decisions. So, here's what we will have by the end of it. There's also impacts. Now, obviously, the sample only has um, the fire explosion for the meteor spell, so even the ice ones use that. You can even optionally decide to have the impact also do damage, which, as you can see, it did. He's dead. He died from the poison. Everything is good to go. So, we are going to go ahead and get started on this. This will be quite a few episodes long, and there's nothing that we can do about that. The fact of the matter is, we will need to make several bits of assets first. Um, so I'm going to walk you through what we need to do. I was going to do this side by side with you guys for adding it directly into my project, but I'm just going to migrate. I'm going to be 100% lazy. So we're going to go ahead and walk you through the process. I won't go as fast as I did with the last videos that I did because there's nothing I need to fix. I spent days combing over this to make sure of it. So let's go ahead and get started. So we are going to need 4 structures. If you don't know how to make a structure, let me move one of my content browsers in here because I have all 4 of them open. Go ahead and just come to this. If we right click, you can either search for structure, or if you come down here to blueprint, it's right here in structure. We'll need 4 of them, but we're going to start with one first. First, impact damage. And you need 2 variables in there. The first one being a Boolean, has impact damage. Oh, right. Remove the question mark. There's some things that don't like question marks. I believe that's only in PCG, but I don't want to take the risk. Then the second one being a float, and naming it radius. That's all we need for the impact damage structure. Now for the next for the next structure, this one will be impact FX. And for it, we will have a sound cue, a Niagara system, and a particle system. I named it Sound Niagara Cascade. Now, I only have the particle system because, there are still some really good asset packs out there that we buy that unfortunately use the old particle system. But that is expensive. So if you get the opportunity to and you have them, try to use Niagara. That's just an optimization thing for you guys there. I have it because there may be times that we have to use the old particle system as well. Now, once that's created, we will now create the projectile damage trace. This is very important. It is a must-have, and is what makes the projectiles so flexible. So the first thing we need is a name, and I named it trace name. Then we need a float for trace radius, a float for trail length, a sound cue for the attack sound, and then a damage type, called it damage type, and then the impact damage structure that we just made. It's the one that has the boolean, the bool, and the radius. Leave that here for a second for you guys. Now we're going to continue. The next structure we will need is called projectile data. So we will have in here the very first thing, projectile damage trace. I made it an array. The purpose for this being, say you choose to have one single effects for a bolt, for a projectile, and it has fire and lightning in it. Well, you may want fire and lightning damage, and you may not want to have a fire and lightning damage type. This way you can keep it separate, have a fire damage type and a lightning damage type. Gives far more flexibility. Um, that way, when you're buffing just lightning, then it will only buff just lightning, things like that. And then we have another particle system. This is for the bolt itself. So we have particle system and Niagara. That way you can choose which one. Try not to use both. And then we have chance to apply status effect. So will the bolt have the ability to apply status effects? And then the status effect, which is of type ACF base status effect. And I made it a map with a float, and this will be the chance for it to proc. I will note now, since we are talking about the status effect thing here, after this video series, likely early next week, I will be starting on making a gas-based status effect manager. And it's just because there's some things that will be easier to do if it's purely gas-based instead of being a wrapper. So that is just something to look forward to. Then we need the general impact effect. So impact effects structure that we made. That way, when we make impact, it knows and can impact the ground and leave its ground effects for us. Now, the next thing we need to make is called an enumeration. If I were to right click, you can obviously search for enumeration, or you can go down here to blueprint and there's enumeration. And I named it AOE type. Now, obviously, I may be adding more in the future, but for now, this is all I needed. And that's the beauty of having an enumerator. You can add things as much as you want. If you remove stuff, then you're going to need to go into blueprints. But anyways, I digress. I currently have 3 of them. And I have ground effect, rain effect, ground, and rain effect. And we have this. That way we can choose whether we do one, the other, or both when we proc the spell. The next thing is a spawn rate curve. So for this one, you go down to miscellaneous, and you'll find curve. And this will pop up. It's a float curve. Now, I have this because I like the spells that do this kind of thing, the rain effect, to taper on and taper off. This can also work very well with the area damage that pulsates. Right now I'm doing it every 1 second. There could also be a curve table for it. I wanted to show both options. That way you guys know how to do both options, but I'll likely be changing mine to a tapering as well. That way, little whimsical. I don't know. I may keep it every 1 second, keep it consistent. Well, a set duration anyways, or frequency. Now, once we are in our curve, just so you know how mine is, I have a point right here. If you mouse button click on here, it will create a point, and when you select it, my first one is at 0 and 0.4. So that means every 0.4 seconds it'll spawn. And then here, my next one, I have at 0.35 and 0.1, meaning once it gets to the 0.35 part of the counter, at that point it will be spawning every 0.1 second. And then again here at 0.8 of the curve, it'll still be at 0.1. This way, don't want to move it. This way, it keeps a solid curve. As you can tell right here, 0.05. So at the precipice, it will be, the value will be at 0.061. So really quick. Obviously, you can change these around how you want, but I would recommend making sure you have things exactly how I have them, just to make sure it works, and then make changes. And then the final point at 1 second, again at 0.4. And that's the curve. We'll go ahead and hit save and close. Now, before we end this episode, there are a couple things we need to fix. They're not necessarily bad. Everything still works. We just don't want to run into any issues that would cause you to have to, the system to crash when you build and things like that, because there are some errors that pop up. We're going to go ahead and take care of those errors now. That way we don't have to worry about them later. So let's close this. And they are within the status effects themselves. So if you go to full sample, blueprints, status effects, you'll find the poison one. If you open up the poison one and go to on trigger status effect, we need to add an is valid to the get character owner. And if it is valid, then go to this next is valid. Because otherwise you're going to get an error pop-up window, which means it will crash the engine. Well, it will crash the game on a built project. And the reason for this is this still tries to do its thing after the character is dead. And that's what causes the error. And this is one of the reasons why I've considered and have decided to create my own status effect manager for gas specifically, because then it handles that for me. I don't have to worry about it. Now, the next thing is in its parent, ACF damage over time BP. This one won't necessarily cause a crash, but it does cause a red error warning, which could cause some compile issues. There is no damage caused or plugged in. So you'll need to search for instigator and get the instigator. You can get it from here or from here. It doesn't matter. Actually, get it from right here. I know for a fact this one works. And plug it into damage causer. That's it. Everything is done and ready for that. Now, I know this episode was a bit boring, but it's all information and all things that were necessary and important to ensure that everything works as it should. So in the next episode, we will create the blueprint master that manages the area of effect stuff, and also creating the action for it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.